was here. The Rava came in.
A guten Erev Shabbos, Yidalach. A guten Erev Shabbos, friends. Thank you so much for joining us Erev Shabbos, even though it's late. Something so special about today, which is the day after Tisha B'Av. As a child, I had an encounter with the Da'ברtzינן. Probably many of you remember him, Zecher Tzadik Lebrocha. Very, very positive, had a very strong impact on me for the rest of my life. I want to share with you a story that I've just seen, and I actually copied it. If it wasn't sent out, I'm sure the B'Yael will send it out in Mitzvah Shem soon. Remarkable story that he published in the foreword to his Sefer. I mean, Da'ברtzינן published a lot of Svarim, 9 Svarim of Shilas and Shuvas, and several other Svarim. One Sefer is commentary on the Gvuras Ari of the Shagas Arya. Remarkable story. So the Nazis, Yimach Shemam, decided to, Rachmana litzlan, round up the Jews in Hungary. Well, originally Jews in Hungary thought they were safe because Hungary were together with the Nazis. Yimach Shemam, Rachmana litzlan, was in 1944, and it was between Purim and Pesach, and the Nazis, with the help of their friends, the Arab Cross, Rachmana litzlan, decided to apply their final solution for the Yidden of Hungary. So the Yidden were rounded up from around Debrecen. The Moshe Stern was the Rav of the Debrecen, and they rounded up the Jews from all the towns around, and they constructed a tiny ghetto, and it was terrible. The living conditions were deplorable. They were almost impossible. Rachmana litzlan, Yidden were dying, and it was just waiting till the Yidden were being rounded up and sent away. So one day says the Da'ברtzínän Rebbe, the Moshe Stern, Zechrona Lebrocha, that he was walking in the streets of the ghetto, and he meets a friend who is also rounded up, and he was a Rav of a town near Debrecen. So they start talking, and he goes to his apartment in the ghetto, and he sees that he has a Sefer Gvuras Ari on Meseches Tainis from the Shagas Arya. Said the Da'ברtzínän said that he loved the Shagas Arya. He mamish loved. He's put in special koyach to learn Rosh Hashanah, Chagiga, Megillah, because there's 2 Evim on those Masechtas from the Shagas Arya. He loved learning the Shagas Arya. He was very proficient in the Shagas Arya. He loved the lumdus of the Shagas Arya. And this was like a treasure. He'd never seen the Gvuras Ari from the Shagas Arya. Shagas Arya is Reb Aryeh Leib Ginsburg, the Rav of Metz, and many other cities. And there was a brilliant mind. And here is a treasure. He begs his friend, he said, "Couldn't I have the Shagas Arya Sefer, the Gvuras Ari, a Meseches Tainis? I'll start learning a Meseches Tainis, and I want to learn it together with the Gvuras Ari." A friend agreed, he gave him the Sefer. And he went home, and he's learning, and he's feverishly learning Meseches Tainis, and he knows time is ticking, and he's learning until the terrible day when him and his family was rounded up. And he says on his desk were 2 Svarim left on his desk. The Meseches Tainis, 2 Svarim, Meseches Tainis, and the Shagas Arya Sefer Gvuras Arya Meseches Tainis. And with tears, he turns and looks at the Sefer for his last time. One hand, he's holding his little son, Baruch Chenissen, 1.5 years old. Another hand, he kisses the mezuzah, and with tears, he says goodbye to the Sefer. He was deported to Bergen-Belsen. And he said there was one point where he was just like, he was on the third, beds were like rows, and he was in the 3rd row, on the shelf, on the 3rd row, in the barracks at night. and he almost gave up on life. He almost gave up on life, and he was thinking he can't wait to be ready with his father and mother, with family members that Achman al-Islam went up B'S'ora Shamaymu with the fire into heaven. They were killed al Kiddush Hashem in Auschwitz. And then he remembered, there was a thought that he came, but I didn't finish Maseches Tainis. How can I go from this world? I didn't finish Maseches Tainis. I never finished learning this beautiful sefer. The Lomdus is so sweet. The Gevudas Adi from the Shagas Adi, I never finished it. And then a thought came into his mind, if God takes me out of this Gehenna and I'm alive again, I will print the sefer with a commentary on it. And he said that all of a sudden he felt like an extra energy in him. This thought that he has a purpose to live, to pull through, gave him the power to keep on living. And indeed, he was Zoicha, that was at the end of Nisan, 1945, when the Americans broke open the gates of Bergen-Belsen. He and several thousand prisoners were set free. He returns to Debrecen, and he goes into the ghetto. Everything was destroyed, and all the memories come back, a flood of memories of the dogs, and the whips, and the torment, and his lost family. And in front of him, there's a huge pile of bags of books of Svarim, Sifrei Kodesh, that the Nazis in Machshemam had confiscated for the Yidden that were slated to bring to paper factory to recycle. And the first bag he rips open. And the first sefer was his sefer, the Gevudas Ari Maseches Tainis, with the bookmark right there in Daf Yud Ches. He grabbed the sefer, and it was like cold water on a tired soul. He tried to rebuild, together with Hungarian Jews, life in Hungary, and he put his heart and soul into it. He was there for a couple of years, but then the communists took over, and they realized that there was no future for Jews under communism in Hungary, and they left it. They came here primarily to the United States of America, and he became a Rav in Borough Park. The years went by, and he forgot this thing that he said to himself about publishing the Sefer on, oh, thank you so much, Rabbi, for sending out the Maram Mekoima so quickly. He totally forgot about this promise that he made to himself, that he's going to reprint the Sefer of the Shagas Arya, Maseches Tainis, with his commentary. And one day he's sitting and he's learning the Me'idi on Maseches Tainis, and it's in Me'idi, it's in Daf Tezvov, and he's reading like this: that a person, if it's an individual or it's a congregation, and there's a mitzvah they can't do, they should have in mind that we could do it, they will do it. They will do it. Go on. That a poor person, he can't give tzedakah, but he thinks that the Rebbeinu Shalom will give me wealth. That day, I'm going to go out, I'm going to give tzedakah, and he has a mind, has a project in his mind of how he's going to spend his money on tzedakah. And as a reward of this machshav, it will be considered as if he did so. And this is what the Gemara says here in Tainis, the Gemara says, they couldn't fast because the government made a gzeira against it. That they made on their mind that they're makabel tainis, when the shmat will be over, that's when they're going to be makabel. They're actually going to fast. As it says in the pasuk in the Nil, Because we Chazal learn from here, from the day that you placed it in your heart that you will fast, your words were accepted. Chazal say not from the day you started fasting, from the day you made the achlota toiva, you made this resolution in your heart that you will fast, even though you couldn't yet. Your words were accepted. It was as if you already fasted. So says the Da'ברtzinן that all of a sudden, like a rush came into his mind, a flash came into his mind of how he was in the ghetto and he got the sefer from his friend, the Gvuras Ari, and how the Nazis came to round him up in his apartment, and he leaves with the son, and he kisses the mezuzah, and he looks at the Gvuras Ari for the last time, and the image of being in the barracks in Bergen-Belsen, and he's almost giving up on life, and that strength that he has to still finish the sefer Gvuras Ari, Maseches Tainis, and he's going to write a sefer, and if the Eibishter takes him out, he makes a resolution, he's going to take, and he never did it. And he decides he's going to write his commentary on Gvuras Ari Maseches Tainis, and he publishes it. Adkan, the story that the Da'ברtzinän writes in his forward to Sefer. Unbelievable story. Unbelievable story. When I was a kid, I worked on a project. I was learning this. I was a year after my bar mitzvah, year and a half, 2 years after my bar mitzvah, and I was learning Maseches Psachim, and learning the Hilchas Pesach, and I made like some charts, and also a reshima of things that the Alter Rebbe writes in the Shulchan Aruch, which at the end in the Siddur or in other places, Minik Chabad ends up being differently, and the reason for it. And then was published together with other ha'aris and friends, and was turned into a sefer, like in Lubavitch yeshivas like to do. I went to Borough Park, to the Da'ברtzinän's house. We're talking about a kid. I'm just maybe 15 years old. And I remember I brought him the papers and we spoke. It was just such an impression, such an unbelievable smile. I mean, reading now the forward of the Sefer, the pain that he had Nebuch children here in the United he lost a son at a young age, at age of 27. He lost so much of his family in the Holocaust. It was such an encouraging smile. And he sat down and he wrote me, whoa, what a haskama he wrote to me. He said, came to me, he writes my name, Morosov Chacham Nevonim, Morosov, Biyanti Harbe. I had so much pleasure. It was Meshivas Nafesh. Wow. Ashrei Loi v'Ashrei Chelkoi. And as a kid, I didn't have the unbelievable Gewalt over here. Oshin is a Rov, was a Goen, and is writing child shus over the world. And he has time for a little kid. But it really had an unbelievable impact on me. That unbelievable smile. And that beautiful long paper written up, a haskama. It wasn't, anything he wrote wasn't shaykh to me. It was just that smile and that attention picked me up in an incredible way. So this is the power of today. This is the power of the day after Tisha B'Av. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, we spoke about this in the past few months. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Luloi seirascha sha'ashuoi ozavadati be'oni. David HaMelech says, without the Torah, which was there for me, as my delight, I would have been lost in my pain. You see it in real life. You see it by this story in the Da'ברtzinän, sitting in the barracks in 1945, Rahman al-Islam, almost giving up on life in Bergen-Belsen. And Toiroscha Shashuai, because he remembers his delight, the Shagas Arya and Tainis, Masechtas Tainis. He didn't finish the Shagas Arya. I mean, what are people thinking about in Bergen-Belsen, Rahman al-Islam? They were tormented in the worst possible way. You know, we think of yourself at the end of the fast yesterday. You have koyach to talk. These are people after a year or 2 years of being tormented, malnourished, losing loved ones. And he almost gives up on life. You see this by the story of the Da'ברtzínən, that without the Torah was his delight. And he remembered, there's that geschmack. What was the delight that could bring him back to life? A shtickle potato, kugel? No. What was that one thing that could bring him back to life, to give him courage to live on? It was finishing to learn the Shagas Arya Maseches Tainis. There's a terrific medrash. The medrash says, by the way, there's a nice pirush in the Tehillah L'David that says that we find that one of the Roman generals said to Rebbe Akiva, why are you giving charity? Why do you give charity? If God made him poor, why do you give him charity? So Rebbe Akiva said that the Eibishter is our father. If a father, even when he punishes his child, he loves his child. He wants to know that someone else is feeding his child. It's a Gemara Mabased of Yud. So says the Tehillah L'David that that's what we say. Lula teroscha shashui, because we Yidden got the Torah. And when Yidden got the Torah, the Eibishter said, the Yidden are my children. And therefore the angel said, we want the Torah. The Eibishter said, no, there's no bar mitzvah here. The Yidden are my children. They get it first. So therefore, even when a Yid is beyond you, we know that the Eibishter is the father and cares for a Yid. So there's a terrific Medrash Eicha. The Gemara says, the Chazal say in the Medrash on Eicha, Pasha Gimel Lamachik Shayobi Keitza Geol Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. Ona Anitama Mikem. The Eibishter says, I'm surprised. I wonder. Ha'eich himtamtem likol oisan hashonim. How did you make it through such a bitter galus? The Eibishter says, I can't believe it. How did you make it? How did you pull through? How did you pull through this bitter galus of 2,000 years? And he didn't say, Ribono Shel Olam, ilulei teiroscha shenasata alonu kvar avadnu ha'umos. Without the Torah that you gave us, we would have been lost by the nations. That's what they say, takazoi. Without the Torah, our delight, we really could not have pulled through. We could not have pulled through. But that's the power of the day after Tisha B'Av. That shows that the Yidden had always that koyach to pull through. Why? Because it was always teros chashashuah, because they always had Torah as their delight. Like the Da'ברtzínən from Bergen-Belsen, who almost gives up on life, but then when he remembers he didn't finish the Shagas Arya, he has to finish the Shagas Arya, and that gives him the courage to carry on. That's the power of the day after Tisha B'Av. It says that Tisha B'Av, going from Tisha B'Av, Chassidus says, Chazal tell us that the biggest Yom Tov is Yom Kippur and the 15th day of Av, Chamishas B'Av. Why? In Kabbalah it says because it's the full moon. Every month has the full moon. But because there's such a Yedid and Tisha B'Av, so the Aliyah, the full moon now is the biggest that there is. So coming from Tisha B'Av, we know that Lula Teroscha Shashuei, Azavadati Ba'ani, that the Torah we see in today's world, we see how Goyim don't have the ability to cope with what's happening. But Yidden have the koyach to cope. Why? Because we Lulei Teroscha Shashui, because we have the Torah was our delight. Lulei Teroscha Shashui. We wait that Bekod of Mamish, that already today we'll hear the voice from the Ribono Shel Olam talking to us. Bonai, Anitama Mekem Eichem Tamtem Likolosim Shoni. And we will say that this was Teiroscha Shashuya Azavadi Bani. We should be zeichet to have this conversation with the Ribono Shel Olam already today. B'vias Mashiach Tzidkenu.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
A good Shabbos, everyone. Azisen Shabbos, and Shabbat Nechama B'Kiflayim.
Amen.
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 I mean, Kipshut. In the few moments that we're still in Golos, every Yid, the issues that we have, that we should have, and the Chama B'Kiflayim, the Eibishter should simply miraculously settle all the issues that all the Yidden have in the best way. B'toy v'nira v'anigla.
Amen.